Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today for another Twilight Zone video in my Twilight Zone ranking series where I rank every episode of the original Twilight Zone from my least favorite to my favorite. Today I'm going to be talking about number 75, The Encounter, written by Martin Goldsmith and directed by Robert Butler. This is a season 5 episode and as always there will be spoilers. So The Encounter is a solid and interesting Twilight Zone episode in my opinion. It's also another episode that was somewhat bold for its time and also a bit controversial. This is basically a two-person character study, and I think as a character study the episode works really well. As a supernatural story, not quite as much, but I still think overall this is a pretty solid episode. It's also, like I said, very controversial for the way it portrayed one of the characters whose name is Taro. So Neville Brand as Fenton and George Takei as Taro give very strong, compelling performances. I thought the acting was a standout in the episode from both men. So this episode starts out with Fenton in his attic, and he gets a visit from the other man, Taro, about working on his lawn. Fenton agrees and invites Taro in for a drink. So they start talking, and you can already tell there's tension between the two men. And Fenton makes a remark about Taro's name and ethnic background. Taro takes offense, but then explains that he changed his name. So Fenton shows Taro a samurai sword and says he got this off a soldier in the war, and Taro, for some reason, is immediately drawn to the sword. The whole thing is awkward, but it is very intense, to be fair. At this point, Fenton explains that he's tried to rid himself of the sword, but it always comes back to him somehow. The two men continue to talk, and Fenton comes across as racially insensitive, getting Taro more and more annoyed, and their moods continue to shift. And all these scenes were very well acted, in my opinion. Eventually, Fenton tells the backstory of how he got the sword. Taro seems drawn to it again, and he decides it's time to leave, but when he wants to leave, the door won't open. Then Taro tells a story about his father and how he was a traitor during the war. And this is actually where a lot of the controversy of the episode came from, because it turns out that this story never really happened and it was said to have caused negative stereotypes. So at this point, Taro accuses Fenton of murder. Now Fenton gets defensive, saying all he was doing was following orders. Then Fenton actually admits that he has doubts about what he did, but Taro seems to be completely consumed by the sword at this point. And like I said, these parts with the sword are a little bit awkward, even though they're very well acted, to be fair. So then they get in a fight, and Fenton falls on the sword, and Taro jumps out the window, and they're both goners. Now, while I respect the Twilight Zone tackling these issues and was really interested by the subject matter and the characters, the supernatural element of this episode is strange in my opinion. It almost feels like it was just put in the episode to make it feel like it has more of a Twilight Zone theme, and I thought all of that could have been handled better. Still, The Encounter is a very interesting episode. It's intense and very well acted, with some interesting things to say considering when it was made. It's just amazing to me that some of these Twilight Zone episodes aired when they did. So for all those reasons, The Encounter comes in at number 75. As always, feel free to leave me some comments on what you thought of The Encounter. Thanks for your support and thanks for watching.